Sudan is that we have tried war in 2013, 2016, but it fails. Let us embrace peace and let us engage in dialogue. And our government and leaders, there is no other alternative but dialogue. Dialogue is the only solution. And I would want to call upon our religious leaders to actually continue putting pressure on leaders of South Sudan, the political class, to make sure that this country does not descend or go back to a full-scale war in South Sudan. Our people cannot afford another war because it will be devastating to our people.
Sounds of the Week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. Kenyan Special Envoy to South Sudan, Raila Odinga, arrived this morning in Juba in a bid to avert another civil war in the country. Political analyst Andrea Mach Mabior has linked the current political tensions in South Sudan to the partial implementation of the 2018 peace agreement, particularly the security arrangements. And the National Land Committee has issued a stern warning that any new informal settlers in areas of Juba where social surveys have been completed will be considered illegal and will face the law. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Baria Johnson, and now the news in detail. Kenyan Special Envoy to South Sudan, Raila Odinga, arrived this morning in Juba in a bid to avert another civil war in the country. Mr. Odinga was appointed yesterday by President Ruto after the Kenyan head of state phoned President Salva Kiir and discussed the situation in the country that led to the house arrest of first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar on Wednesday. The Kenyan head of state told Kiir he will send an envoy to Juba to engage parties on de-escalation. Following the phone conversation, Ruto appointed Mr. Odinga to travel to South Sudan to de-escalate the situation. The former Kenyan Prime Minister arrived at Juba International Airport this morning and was received by Ambassador Philip Jadanathan. Yesterday, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, which facilitated the 2018 peace agreement, warned that current trajectory in South Sudan, if unchecked, will lead to a collapse of the transitional process and relapse into full-scale war with devastating consequences for the people of South Sudan and the region at large. Political analyst Andrea Mach Mabior has linked the current political tensions in South Sudan to the partial implementation of the 2018 peace agreement, particularly the security arrangements. According to Mach, the failure to fully implement the peace deal is largely due to lack of political will and a trust deficit among the parties involved. Reflecting on the ongoing turmoil, Mach lamented that South Sudanese people who have fought for democracy, rule of law and justice since 1983 are still embroiled in internal conflict today. He stressed that the revitalized peace agreement has not been fully implemented, which has led to the current political instability. In his comments on iRadio Sundown program on Thursday, Mach said,
it is very unfortunate that the South Sudanese who fought since 1983 for democracy, rule of law, and justice are still fighting themselves until today. Of course, we are here now with this political tension and insecurity in the country because the revitalized peace agreement was not fully implemented. There is a lack of political will, and then there is trust deficit among the parties to the agreement. And particularly the issue of security arrangements. was not completed. The different forces were not unified in a one national army. So you have militias here and there. This is what led us to here. If the agreement were implemented in letter and spirit, in good faith, we might have not been to where we are here.
Andrea urged South Sudan's political leaders to embrace dialogue as a way to avoid a return to full-scale war. He appealed to religious leaders to continue applying pressure on the political class, encouraging them to make sure the country does not slide back into conflict.
The crucial message that I would want to tell people of South Sudan is that we have tried war in 2013, 2016, but it fails. Let us embrace peace and let us engage in dialogue. And our government and leaders, there is no other alternative but dialogue. Dialogue is the only solution. And I would want to call upon our religious leaders to actually continue putting pressure on leaders of South Sudan, the political class, to make sure that this country does not descend or go back to a full-scale war in South Sudan. Our people cannot afford another war because it will be devastating to our people.
The chairperson of the National Constitutional Review Commission has urged unity government to establish a special funding plan to prevent further extensions of the transitional period. The commission is tasked with raising awareness and engaging citizens in discussions about the constitution. Dr. Yang Zer Yor says establishing a special funding plan for the Commission and other constitutional and electoral institutions will prevent further extensions beyond the current timeline. Dr. Zor emphasized the Commission's commitment to ensuring a participatory and representative process through nationwide civic education and public consultations. He says the NCRC proposes that funding be provided quarterly instead of requiring full disbursement at once. Dr. Zor encourages the development partners to fund the process without conditions attached to ensure its smooth progress. He was speaking yesterday at the launch of South Sudan's constitution-making process civic education under the theme Together for the Permanent Constitution for South Sudan.
The RT government should work out a special funding plan not only for the NCRC but also for other electoral institutions so as to avoid another extension at the end of the current one. For the purposes of the NCRC, such a funding does not have to be fully made at once. We make a suggestion that an arrangement be made to provide disbursements on quarterly basis. We also suggest that our partners should also prepare to single-mindedly support the constitution-making process by providing funding within their approved budgets for the support to the constitution-making process without any conditions attached.
South Sudan's constitution-making process is a critical step toward establishing a permanent legal framework for governance, democracy, and stability in the country. The process is outlined in the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan. Civic education plays a crucial role in South Sudan's constitution-making process by ensuring that citizens understand their rights, responsibilities, and the implication of a democratic constitution. Given the country's history of conflict and political transition, inclusive and well-informed public participation is essential for building a legitimate and widely accepted constitutional framework. Former University of Juba's Vice-Chancellor and a member of the National Constitutional Review Commission, Professor John Akage, says without peace, the constitution-making process will not work. John Akage made the remark during the official launch of civic education and public consultation campaign held at Freedom Hall on Thursday. The professor underscored the importance of peace in nation building, saying without peace, even the constitution-making process will be futile. He revealed that South Sudan is regarded as one of the most fragile countries unable to provide services. Akage regrets that his generation was born, raised, and aged in civil war. but he said the leaders can change the fate if they choose to.
Peace is very important. To maintain peace in the country is very important. Without peace, nothing, even this work, will actually go all in vain. It will never see the light. Some of us were born in war, and we continue to live in war, and we are going to age in war. But this one should not be the fate. We can reverse that fate. South Sudan is regarded as one of fragile countries. It is a country challenged in terms of providing services. It is a country challenged in terms of having administrative control of the territory. It is a country challenged by raising enough resources such as taxes. There is actually a lot of taxable income. We are unable to get it because of the institutional weakness, because of other things that undermine the taxpayers' trust in terms of their commitment, whether to comply or not. We live between either peace or no peace.
Professor Akech described the current situation in the country as dangerous because the leaders are struggling to transition to democracy. According to Akech, if this transitional process is not managed with care, it might plunge the country into another severe civil war. He called on the leaders to rescue the country from the brink of collapse.
When the country is moving from democracy to autocracy, there could be wars. And when the country wants to move away from autocracy to democracy, there is also a potential war. And especially a zone called anocracy. It means it is not autocracy, it is not democracy. And they said it is a very dangerous zone because the government is not strong enough and decisive enough to keep the rule of law, because under these circumstances, if you are in anocracy, the chances of a civil war recurring is twice as when you have dictatorship, and 3 times more than when you have democracy. So we live in a very dangerous zone, and we live at the edge of peace and war. Please, politicians, take us out of this dangerous zone.
You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News. The chairman of the Transitional Sovereign Council of Sudan, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has phoned his counterpart Salva Kiir, reaffirming the support of his government for South Sudan in achieving peace in the country. The Sudan news agency SUNA reported that the commander-in-chief of the Sudan Armed Forces was reassured President Kiir about the situation in South Sudan and wished the people of South Sudan continued security and stability. SUNA cited a statement, and I quote, Al-Burhan reaffirmed the support of the Sudanese government and people for South Sudan in achieving peace and stability for the brotherly people of the South, noting the solid relations between the two countries, which reflect the common destiny of the two brotherly peoples. End quote. The chairman of the Sovereign Council briefed President Salva Kiir on the developments in Sudan, especially after the recent victories achieved by the armed forces on various fronts of the battle. However, according to media reports, political analysts in the region described the message as an important diplomatic statement from Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the chairman of the Sudan's Transitional Sovereign Council. Since its independence in 2011, South Sudan has faced internal conflicts and struggled with stability. Despite progress in peace agreements, it still faces political instability, armed conflicts, and humanitarian crises. And finally, the National Land Committee has issued a stern warning that any new informal settlers in areas of Juba where social surveys have been completed will be considered illegal and will face the law. The directive aims to regulate land use and prevent further unauthorized occupation in designated areas. Speaking on the matter, Engineer Luis Quoth, the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development, said social survey conducted in Cabo and Sherikat has been completed. He warns that any new informal settlements will not be tolerated in areas already surveyed. Engineer Quoth added that any settlers currently constructing in these locations will be deemed illegal and the law will be applied on them.
in the area where social survey have been conducted, like in Garbu, in Sharikat. We want to tell the people that the social survey that was done there is done and is complete. The committee will not tolerate any new informal settlers who are right now constructing in the area. They will be considered illegal and informal, and the law of force will be used in that area according to the agreement that has already been reached between the committee, the informal settlers, and the host community of the area.
The National Land Committee, established by presidential order in 2021, convened a meeting on 26th of March at the Central Equatorial State Secretariat in Juba, chaired by Michael Shanjek, the National Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, and co-chaired by Agostino Jadalla, the Governor of Central Equatorial State. You are listening to iRadio News, and now to the regional and international news with my colleague Walma Pal.
A very good afternoon to you, Baria Johnson, taking you through the regional and international stories. Let's begin in Sudan, where grave violations against children have surged across Sudan's Darfur state since the start of the year, with 110 violations verified in northern Darfur alone, and a staggering 83% increase in child casualties in Sudan compared to the first quarter of 2024. In El Fashar, North Darfur, more than 70 children have been killed or maimed in less than 3 months. Since early 2025, intense shelling and airstrikes in the Zamzam camp for internally displaced people, IDPs, have resulted in 16% of all verified child casualties in Al Fashar. Elsewhere, a strong 7.7 magnitude earthquake has hit central Myanmar, the United States Geological Survey says. The epicenter was located 16 kilometers, 10 miles northwest of the city of Saijing at a depth of 10 kilometers, the USGS adds. 43 construction workers are missing after an unfinished high-rise building collapsed hundreds of miles away in Bangkok. And finally, King Charles III spent a short period of time in hospital on Thursday after experiencing temporary side effects during cancer treatment, Buckingham Palace said. The king returned to Clarence House, where he was said to be continuing to work on a state purpose and make calls from his duty. He has cancelled a tour of Birmingham on Friday, acting on medical advice. Charles 76 had planned to travel to the city for a busy schedule of engagements, which included 4 events. The palace first announced the king's cancer diagnosis in February 2024. That's all on the regional and international stories. Back to you, Baria Johnson.
Thank you, Wal. And now to the sports news with Nyadang William.
South Sudanese athlete Ajit Talang has set a new national record in the 10,000 meter track event, securing second place in the Israel 10,000 meter championship with a time of 33 minutes 47 seconds. This achievement breaks the previous national records of 37 minutes 55 seconds at 31 per second, which was set by Felicia Oyo on June 25, 2016 in Durban, South Africa, according to the South Sudan Athletics Federations. South Sudanese athletes arrive in Tel Aviv on March 26 to compete in the championship, marking another milestone in the country's growing presence in international athletics. The second round of the South Sudan Premier League kicked off yesterday with a goalless draw between Holy Family and Koryombo. With these results, Holy Family moved to 32 points, securing second place, while Koryombo reached 25 points, sitting in 5th place. Despite missing key players, Koryombo delivered a solid performance, and Sudan Gatiak was named man of the match. Today's fixtures will see Bentiu City face Wajuma Awil, while Al Hilal Wow takes on Olympic Rang. And finally, in basketball, Josh Gidey hit a brilliant half-court buzzer beaten to help the Chicago Bulls complete an exceptional 119-117 comeback against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Bulls were trailing by 5 points with less than 13 seconds remaining at the United Center on Thursday, but they hit 3 3-pointers in the last 10 seconds of the match. With time expiring, Gidey let fly from within his own half and walk off with a remarkable calm as his shot found the hoop. With 25 points, 15 rebounds, and 11 assists, Gidey hits in fifth triple-double of the season. The only Bulls player with more in one champion is the 15 Michael Jordan managed in 1988 to 1989. That's all in the world of sport, and now back to you, my colleague Baria Johnson.
You are listening to iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here are the headlines once again. Kenyan Special Envoy to South Sudan, Raila Odinga, arrived this morning in Juba in a bid to avert another civil war in the country. Political analyst Andrea Machmabior has linked the current political tensions in South Sudan to the partial implementation of the 2018 peace agreement, particularly the security arrangements. And the National Land Committee has issued a stern warning that any new informal settlers in areas of Juba where social surveys have been completed will be considered illegal and will face the law. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio, like our Facebook page, iRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I am Baria Johnson. Thank you.